Estou passando nesse podcast para dividir uma informação que fez toda a diferença na minha vida. Quer fazer pós-graduação, mas tá impossível correr de um lugar para o outro?
Pois é, ainda mais com o trânsito.
Então você precisa conhecer a educação à distância do Senac. Sabia que é nota máxima no MEC? E tem diversos cursos de pós-graduação para te levar ainda mais longe. 100% online, sem necessidade de TCC e com acesso direto a todos os professores.
Ah, saber isso fez diferença sim.
Inscreva-se já na pós-graduação EAD. Quer saber? Senac EAD.
Welcome to the 5 o'clock show. It's time for Common Sense. Now, it's Katz and Cosby with John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby, standing for truth, justice, and the American way, bringing common sense to the world. Now, here's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby.
Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies.
Well, I am back. Finally, I'm back.
We are thrilled to have you back, John. Wow.
Tell me lies, tell me lies. Well, I've been watching the Democratic convention the last 2 nights since I'm back. And, wow. I mean, it's lies, lies, lies. I mean, I don't understand. It starts with one of the biggest, Kamala Harris, was in charge of the border. President Biden had assigned her to oversee what's going on in the border.
But you know what's they make it sound like she had nothing to do with it.
And they're taking it off all the internet and whatever. I mean, in the studio with us, we got Judge Richard Weinberg, and we have Rudy Washington, first deputy mayor under Rudy Giuliani. Rudy, I mean, I haven't seen you in a week. What do you think? What's going on?
It's depressing. I can't even watch the DNC. I mean, because they talk about, they're going to take us back. Yeah, I want to go back to the last 4 years. That's where I want to go to. You know, where inflation was 1.2%. You know, gasoline was $1.25 cheaper. Yes, there wasn't a crime problem, not only in New York, but across the country.
Doubled the price of gasoline, increased the price of food by 30-40% because of the gasoline's effect on diesel fuel and everything that goes into food manufacturing. Robert Unanaway was here last week and was talking all about it, that a can of beans, the can costs more than the beans.
Oh, boy.
And she used the phrase price gauging, which is like she doesn't even know what she's talking about.
It's worse than that. We were at the PAL lunch that John hosts with Larry Kudlow.
And by the way, we have a birthday.
Larry Kudlow. And
whose birthday is today? Happy birthday.
No, Larry Kudlow's birthday was actually yesterday. Let's do a happy birthday.
Oh, we need a little bit of a birthday song at some point. We'll do it. Here it is.
Day to you.
We love you, Larry.
Happy birthday to you.
To the stratosphere.
Happy birthday, dear Larry Kudlow. Who's now older than me again. To you.
We love you, Larry.
He was fantastic at the police
party,
and he was sick. And because of the kids, he promised to show up. He showed up and did a great job. People respect him, and they really, and
he had a list.
He's
but
great.
Remember, the key thing that Kudlow's speech was, he said, when you don't drill and you keep the price of oil up, it affects all consumer products. He has a list, John, remember, of 200 products that are impacted consumer products.
And
so
by the way,
everything goes up.
Later on in the show,
inflation.
We will be talking with Rich Lowry, who's going to be talking a lot about the Kamala Harris deal. We also have Michael Goodwin. We have Judge Napolitano, Gordon Chang, Governor David Patterson, and in just a minute, Senator Ron Johnson.
And the big story is Robert Kennedy looks like he wants to pull out of the election. And there's rumors around that they're going to be in the same state as Trump. In Arizona.
Arizona on Friday.
And you never know. There may be a marriage.
Yeah, and also, more than that, his number 2, John, came out yesterday, Nicole Shanahan, who's a big backer for RFK, and said, we're trying to decide. There are reports. And also, Trump has now come out and said he would love to maybe have him in the administration, and it's being floated as HHS, Health and Human Services. So this could be very interesting. And listen, in a tight race, everything makes a difference.
The other lie. 818,000 jobs went downhill. They don't exist.
They disappeared. They puffed them up. What a great job record the Obama-Harris administration had.
They don't
and they
exist.
lied about 818,000
That's
jobs.
a huge amount.
Don't tell me that's a rounding error, please.
Yeah, by the way, it's the largest downward quote revision. I put revision in quotes since 2009, John.
I'm shocked.
2009.
There's gambling going on here.
That's right. Rudy, you and I, imagine that, them puffing up their own
Well,
record.
the big item is, and I've been listening to you from the Greek islands. I listened. You were on you go on the 5 o'clock show and on midnight.
Wow.
So
And
I
thank
would
you for
listen till
staying
1
up.
o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
Thanks for the positive feedback.
Can
We
I say one
appreciate
thing?
it.
I'm jealous. I wish we were in the Greek islands, you know.
It was beautiful, guys.
Well, you look great in
The
tan.
food was great. The people were great, and the crew we had on the yacht was great.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah.
Just because one of my favorite moments, you shared this with us, is when you pulled into your home island of Nisoros and they were ringing the bells.
Well, let me tell you, we have a monastery up there that's 523 years old. And as the yacht pulls in, the yacht signals the monastery that we're here. And then the monastery starts ringing the bell.
How beautiful. Did you have tears in your eyes
had
to
tears
see
in my
that?
eyes.
Wow. I bet they were so happy to see you too, John. I mean, what native son coming
And
back.
then I also went to the island where my father was the lighthouse keeper for 17 years. And we went to that island. We circled around it. Boy, what a piece of the rock. It was just a piece of rock.
Amazing what your family went through. And by the way, I think there's a good book out about it too, if I remember,
In
right?
fact, a bestseller, Wall Street Journal, national bestseller.
Exactly. Well, joining us now, you guys talk about a whole bunch of stuff, is Senator Ron Johnson from the great state of Wisconsin. Senator Johnson, first of all, you heard John and I were sitting here talking about lies. You and I were together at the RNC. What do you make of what you've heard out of the DNC so far?
Well, guys, sounds like you're having a good time there in New York. It's just 9-day difference. In Milwaukee, we actually were telling the truth. We were talking about the reality situation in Chicago. It's just nothing but lies, and of course they're completely relying on the mainstream media to cover up for them. I always knew. Let's face it. In the modern era with the leftist media, the first political messiah was Obama, right? And I knew whoever they were going to replace Biden with was going to be crowned the second messiah, right? The next coming. Even I have been amazed at how they've done it. They're not going to hold her accountable. They're not going to provide any scrutiny over to her insane policies that she's proposing. Now, I was down there in Chicago with Senator Rick Scott, two business guys, that talking about the stark difference between President Trump, who also comes from the private sector, understands how hard business is, how government makes it that much more difficult. Contrasting that with the Vice President Harris and Governor Walz, these guys don't have a clue, and it's obvious based on their policy proposals. So what we're seeing in Chicago, they can't talk about reality. They can't talk about how miserable their record is. So it's all about hope again. We're back to Obama's hope and change.
Yeah, and it's interesting, Senator. It's like they're trying to erase the fact that she has been in the White House for the last 3.5 years, like it's some brand new shiny object. And I think one of the starkest contrasts, I just heard President Trump earlier today, and he gave a speech in North Carolina, and he said, look, we don't want wars. We're going to also peace through strength. And he also said he will hold any senior military officials that had to do with the Afghanistan withdrawal. On day one, he will ask for their resignation because he said no one has been held accountable. And then on the flip side, you got Kamala Harris, who is still bragging about being the last person in the room, but yet isn't even talking about that.
No, of course, again, the mainstream media will not hold Biden and Harris accountable for the misery over the last 3.5 years. But I think President Trump will when he gets reelected. And again, I think it's fabulous news. If it is true, if this actually comes about where Bobby Kennedy endorses Trump and Trump tells him that he'll be HHS secretary, I think that'd be fabulous news. We have such an enormous problem in America based on chronic illness. And Bobby Kennedy has been talking about that for years. And we need to completely clean house within HHS, within the FDA, within the NIH, within the CDC. and I can't think of a better person to do it than Bobby Kennedy, and that would be a fabulous alliance. President Trump's going to have his hands full. He's going to be the dog that catches the car, right? This is not the best time to all of a sudden be put in charge of the disaster that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have made of this country. But he's up to the task, and I can't think of a better duo in terms of draining the swamp. Bobby Kennedy and HHS and those federal health agencies and President Trump getting in there and draining the rest of the swamp.
Senator Johnson, I was away in Europe for 7-8 days, and some news stories on the assassination. Is there any? You're on one of those committees. Is there anything new on the assassination attempt on President Trump? Now it says I think I had heard one of the sheriffs actually shot the gun out of Matthew.
Thomas Matthews'
hand.
Like he did the first shot, the counter shot where it shot the gun. There's a report, and then the next shot that took him out was the Secret Service. But that there was that local shot.
But that was until 23 seconds later instead of they were saying 16. What do you know, Senator?
So we actually knew early on. Washington Post reported on the local law enforcement taking the first shot. We really don't know, what he hit. And what's jaw-dropping to me is the fact that the FBI released the body to be cremated before anybody sees the autopsy report. So federal agencies, they're doing everything possible to make us suspicious of their investigation. So the only thing we really know about what happened on July 13th is from local law enforcement. They've cooperated with us because they don't want to be thrown under the bus. And that's what it seems like Secret Service is trying to do to them. But, no, we are not getting the answers. I'm part of a bipartisan effort with Homeland Security, our committee. But they're giving us witnesses that don't tell us much. They're not. We still haven't been able to talk to the sniper who actually took the guy out. I want to know, when did you acquire crooks in your sights? I mean, if it's a false rumor that he saw him ahead of time and asked for permission to take him out, denied it, I want that sniper to tell me that that's a false rumor. But again, the FBI, Department of Justice, Secret Service, they're doing everything possible to just create suspicion. So our investigation will primarily turn into an investigation of their investigation. That's sad but true, but that's probably what we'll end up with in terms of our congressional investigation.
All I can say is the U.S. senators and Republicans, you better stay in power. Otherwise, we'll never know.
We'll never hear anything. Right. Rudy, Senator, you got a question, Rudy Washington.
Senator Johnson, on a different note, I'm African American, and I remember one time being very upset when 44 people were shot in Chicago, about 100 miles north of where you are, and I knew they were all young African American kids. And then 4th of July, 100 were shot and so many killed. And nobody's talking about that. And then today, I see where in Aurora, Colorado, the suburbs of Denver, that a housing development was taken over, and basically African-American seniors pushed out, and this Venezuelan gang, Tren de la Guagua.
Yeah, Tren de la Agua.
Yeah,
yep.
Is taken over, and they also put out shoot police, and the cops are not going in. The management team is afraid to go in, and the governor is doing nothing. So we now have gangs occupying developments in our country, and we're not doing anything about it. And I'm listening to a bunch of happy horse talk at a convention.
Well, let's face it, the left, those are the black lives that don't matter to the left. The shootings in the inner cities, whether it's Chicago, whether it's Milwaukee, whether it's St. Louis, whether it's Los Angeles, the left completely ignores that crime and violence. They promote, defund the police. The people who want strong police systems are the ones in crime-ridden areas. And so the good news is President Trump wants to be president for every American. During his administration, every American benefited. We had increase in real wages, particularly of people in the lower income spectrum. Their wages were actually increased as opposed to what's happened under Biden and Harris. Because of massive deficit spending, they devalued our dollar. Now it's only worth 83 cents since they've taken over. So they made everything more expensive. People can't afford things. We've put the American dream, owning a home, out of the reach of so many people, particularly young people. Again, their record is a travesty if the media would only report honestly on it, and they won't. So this in the same world with the unbiased media, this wouldn't even be a contest, this election. But it's going to be a close call. That's why we got to get out there, tell the truth, and get everybody to vote.
If the Senate doesn't stay Republican with you guys, I don't know if we'll ever know the truth. It'll just be buried.
Well, we have to gain the majority and get chairman, because right now, Democrat chairman, they could care less about holding hearings.
And I just don't understand it. I don't understand why the truth is so hard to achieve.
Well, it's the reality is sometimes not real fun to face, particularly if you're the one in charge of producing that reality. The open borders, the 40-year high inflation, the war on fossil fuels. I mean, Larry Kudlow's absolutely right. I was in manufacturing.
Yep.
But behind our resin costs, which is dependent on oil prices, energy was the biggest cost component of what we produce. So if I wanted to compete internationally, I needed power, and the more of it and the cheaper, the better.
Senator Ron Johnson, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you, and let's keep America, America.
Absolutely. God bless you guys.
God bless you.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you.
I understand we have
Governor
David Paterson, who's going to tell us what the heck is going on in Chicago.
Absolutely. Governor, you were there at the DNC. Fill us in.
Well, I sort of was hoping that the convention would be a lot more dialectic and not, just as kind of these long speeches, and then it's a contest as to who can insult, President Trump the most. But I think President Trump needs to be called a task, but he needs to be called a task by one or two people, not 19 of them in the same night. And in doing it, they ruined what was, I thought, an excellent speech by Joe Biden, but he didn't get on the stage until 11:30. And, there were some speakers I thought were fantastic. I think everyone's always known that Michelle Obama could have gone into politics and probably been more successful than her husband, who seems confused half the time. But the thing is that this is the time to start making your case to the public. And I just thought that a few people, they could pick out the issues that they wanted to talk about, find a way to come up with a position on the border that would be acceptable. There are a number of things that just weren't addressed. What I will say is that it was probably the most exciting convention to have been attending in a long time, because the people, I think, really have rallied around the candidate, Kamala Harris.
But you know what? They're trying to make it sound like she's like some new candidate. And I think, Governor, part of the reason they're clearly attacking President Trump is because they don't seem to want to talk about their policies.
Well,
then
they
it
don't
goes
want to
back
talk about
to
the policies themselves.
Right, exactly.
Okay,
it's defunction.
so you might as well fight the devil, fight the bad guy.
It's all
right,
smoke.
exactly.
Respectfully, Governor, it's all smoke and mirrors. The Biden-Harris record is a record of failure on every issue. And Obama can go up there and say it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and he's wrong. Obama's the guy who enabled Iran to become a world power, a wealthy power, and create terrorism across the world. Were they talking about the threat of nuclear Iran? They're not. Were they talking about the anti-Semitism and the hate going on? Were they talking about the streets of Chicago open to the pro-Hamas crowd and the Jewish kids
what about
being
crime?
marginalized?
What about crime?
Locked in one block. I mean, come on, David. You're a good common sense Democrat like me. What about the truth? The Democratic Party is lying at that convention. It's lies, lies, lies. And they trot out Obama. Come on, give me a break.
I didn't hear any more lies than I thought I heard at the Republican convention, to be perfectly honest with you. But the thing that I think is at this particular point is that everybody has got to get into this situation that's less emotional and more logical in terms of what the future of this country is. So it's one of those. Listen, this is a close race. I know what the vote would be if it was in the room you all are in, but in this whole country, this is a close race, and I don't really hear enough people really drilling down on what they think are the most important issues to discuss.
Governor, do you think that the border situation where all these migrants, one of the most important.
You beat me to it, John. I was going to ask the governor.
I got to get it off my chest.
How could they have any
I
credibility?
got to get it off my chest.
Yeah, how can they have any credibility
How
on
about
that?
the 100,000 Americans that died in the last 12 months because of the border crisis with the fentanyl?
And by the way, John, some new news today, 300,000 missing migrant kids. 300,000. They don't seem to be addressing it.
And we have the dubious distinction of being the number one trafficker of kids in the world.
Horrible. Absolutely horrible. Governor Patterson?
One of the issues that's going on at this convention that I do resent is the fact that they haven't made any time for the mayor of New York, Eric Adams, to speak. So he went there kind of on his own. And he's the one who stood up in front of the whole country and defended all of the cities and all of the states, because New York was really the first state to get hit by the migrant crisis.
Well, it almost got him indicted.
I think then turn around and then, just silence him at a convention. That's not the Democratic Party that I've been in.
They start to silence him when they seized his cell phone at the airport.
Well,
that's when they started the process.
And
of
that's why,
him.
to the governor's point, it is interesting that they're not giving him a speaking slot. He's the mayor of New York City. It's a huge city. He should be. Look at all the people that are speaking. To me, that
AOC?
speaks volumes. He should be speaking there.
AOC?
Right. She gets to speak there.
And
Bernie
he doesn't?
Sanders last
Right.
night.
And the mayor doesn't?
Right. I agree. He should be
I agree with
speaking
you,
there.
David.
The
This
mayor
is
should
good.
be.
David Patterson, Bill Clinton is speaking tonight and he's introducing the vice president. What do you think he's going to say?
Well, Bill Clinton, as you know, John, because you're a good friend of his as well, is always great when he speaks. He always speaks to the point. He basically turned the whole election around in 2012 when he spoke at that convention. But this may be a tall order here because there is so much animosity and acrimony between the parties that I don't think that there are too many people who can successfully rise above it. If there is somebody who could, it would be him.
Well, that's what I look forward to watching it tonight.
I can't wait. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, me too.
Governor Patterson, thank you. We love you. You're great.
Thank you so much, Governor.
Thank you, David.
And
Thank you, Gov.
we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back with
Gordon Chang.
Gordon Chang. What's going on with China, and a lot of things going on. And let's go to that break.
A common sense recap of the day's biggest stories. It's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. Cats and Cosby on 77 WABC.
And we are back here on Cats and Cosby. John is back, which we are thrilled. Also, Judge Richard Weinberg and also Rudy Washington, former deputy mayor.
I couldn't take any more of that beautiful sun in
Yeah, I'm sure
on
it
the
was,
Greek islands.
we feel so sorry for you.
You needed to come back and get aggravated by a Democratic National Convention.
Yeah, really. That'll get you aggravated. Well,
I watched it last night till the end. I mean,
What'd you think?
Yeah, I forced myself to watch it. I had it on C-SPAN because I don't want to hear the commentaries. I just want to know what they're saying.
Right. And what did you think?
I was just, I can't believe the stories I hear.
Yeah, the spinning.
Fleetwood Mac. Lies, lies, lies.
Well,
Exactly.
Gordon Chang, what the heck is going on in China that's going to affect all these things? And have they finally caught President Biden with his hands in the till?
Well, the American people, I think, caught President Biden and the Biden family with the hands in the till. I mean, it's $27 million, much of it from China. And the money from China came in circumstances which strongly suggest corruption. So it's not just that they got money, it's they got money in a crooked manner. And the Chinese have been, I'm sure, very happy to have Biden there. Now, of course, they're going to have to go after somebody else. And they can't touch Trump because they know that he's not someone to mess with. And I think that they're looking at Harris as maybe easy pickings.
Wow. You know, one of the things I just heard a little bit ago, Gordon, was, and President Trump was speaking, he was talking about how, you know, the dismal withdrawal of Afghanistan and Bagram Air Base. I've been to Bagram. When I went over there and I was covering it, and this, you know, was during the war, but obviously we pulled out of Afghanistan, and he brought up how China now has control of Bagram, and it's an hour away. Like how dangerous that is at a time where, you know, they're talking about nuclear development.
Yes, and this was foreseeable. You know, when Mark Milley, who was then chairman of the Joint Chiefs, said, "Oh, let's just leave all that equipment there," he did not understand the symbolic significance of having our enemies parade around the world as they're doing now in our vehicles and brandishing our weapons. And of course, as you point out, after the fall of Afghanistan, which was catastrophic, we had the war in Ukraine, we got the war in Israel, we got the insurgencies in North Africa that look like wars. And as of Monday, it looks like China wants to start a war at Sabina Shoal in the South China Sea against the Philippines. So this is just one disaster after another.
As President Obama said himself, what did he say about President Biden or Vice President Biden at the time?
Oh, yeah, that Robert Gates, he said, right? He's wrong on every...
President Obama
said he screws up everything.
Yeah. Well, Gates reinforced that, too.
He said a better word than that, but I can't say it on the air.
We could bleep
Starts
you.
with an F.
We could bleep you.
Yeah. Robert Gates, in his 2014 memoir, wrote, Joe Biden has been wrong on nearly every foreign policy and national security matter of the past 4 decades. That's almost a direct quote. So, and he has shown that just time after time.
Well, I understand the decision was made by Nancy Pelosi and Obama to dump Joe Biden because the Joint Committee on impeachment, both the Democrats and the Republicans realized that they caught him with his hands in the till.
Yes, and I think that really, when you look at the timing of the June debate between Biden and President Trump, I think that was time to give the Democrats the runway in order to dump Biden, because they knew that if he were at the top of the ticket, he would take down the Democratic Party. So what they wanted to do was create some rules which were favorable to Trump. Remember, the Democrats were the ones insisting on those rules favorable to Trump. And that's a strong signal that this was a setup and that Biden was taken down by his own party.
He was definitely taken down by his own party. We got a minute left, Gordon. What do you want to tell the American people? I mean, I can't believe what kind of foreign policy mess we're in. Domestic policy, how our borders are just wide open. And it looks like that possibly that President Biden was taking the money and was performing for it.
Yeah. The one thing that's really serious is that this Monday, China rammed 2 Philippine ships at Sabina Shoal in the South China Sea. This follows very aggressive actions on June 17th. China, I think, is shifting its attentions away from Taiwan, which would be too hard of a military target, and they're focusing on the Philippines because they think they can get a quick, easy win. This is where
and that
war in
Harris,
East Asia can start.
That Biden or Harris may not do anything about it.
Absolutely. The timing, I think, is not coincidental. The Chinese are smelling that the administration's not going to do anything. They're smelling the weakness. I think you might be more right than wrong. Where do we have that thing with that space robot? Danger, danger, danger. And people out there have to realize that they could go in and take the Philippines, and nobody's going to say anything about it.
You know, the problem
Harris
is, John, so many places. Look at all the things that have happened so far. I mean, I feel like we're in danger in a lot of spots around the world.
You don't have that danger, danger, danger?
We're working on it. Let's see.
Whatever happens to Monroe, wait a second. Whatever happens to Monroe Doctrine, the Chinese
lost in space.
Yeah,
yes,
the Chinese are there. Okay, the Russians are there. The Iranians
are there. They're
doing all over the world.
Listen to me. They're doing what's good for their country. I'm not blaming them for anything. If we had that kind of dictatorship, we may do the same thing. But,
yeah, they're taking advantage.
But what I said to Gordon when I talked to him over the weekend, and I said to other people, the free world is depending on the United States of America to keep it free. Now, if anybody listening to this microphone right now, if you're depending on Harris to keep the free world free, you're in trouble.
I mean,
yeah, big time.
John, you look at what's happening to every urban city in America. You know, we dropped 40,000 kids into a failing school system. This is happening across the country. You've said yourself 120,000, 100,000 a year in fentanyl. Those are young people. Those are young people. The Army and the military is missing all of their numbers. I mean, we're getting weak and being destroyed from inside.
You're going to have 100,000 weaklings in our army, maybe, if they keep going the way they're going, fighting 100,000, big Chinese.
Formidable adversaries.
Yeah.
Well
Thank
armed.
you, Gordon Chang. Keep your eyes open and text me whenever you have anything hot to talk about.
Thank you, Gordon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gordon.
And right now we have, what's the hot news of the day, Rita?
Yep, from
It's
Goya.
the top news of the day, sponsored by Goya. Here's Rita Cosby.
Well, Minnesota Governor John Tim Walz will headline night 3 of the Democratic National Convention as he accepts the party's nomination for vice president. Also, independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy will reportedly drop out of the race. We talked about this at the top of the show, and back former President Trump. He says he will address America on Friday about the present historical moment and his path forward. He's going to do that in Arizona, where coincidentally Trump will be very close by, also in Arizona. So we'll keep you posted on that. And we were just talking about adversaries around the globe. Russia is filing a complaint with the U.S. over U.S. reporters entering Russia alongside Ukrainian troops. Reporters from CNN and the Washington Post have been seen in a Russian town currently under Ukrainian occupation after a surprise attack into Russian territory. And those are the big headlines of the day.
A common sense recap of the day's biggest stories. It's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. Cats and Cosby on 77 WABC.
And we are back here on Cats and Cosby. We were also just talking about this big economic news, how 818,000 jobs, they were misreported by the Biden-Harris administration. That's a lot.
It was a rounding error.
Yeah, rounding error. Just 800,000. We're really sorry. We kind of
Only 818,000.
Maybe inflated the numbers just a little, right? And joining us now to talk about the Biden-Harris economics and the reality is Rich Lowry of the National Review. Rich, you wrote a really powerful column, Kamala Harris's sort of pixie dust fiscal policy. Talk about it.
Yeah, well, in one of her brief interactions with reporters the other day, she'll occasionally do these little poll sides for 2 or 3 minutes. And one reporter asked, well, how are you going to pay for your agenda, Madam Vice President? And she says, well, it's going to be return on investment, child tax credits, return on investment, housing subsidies, return on investment. You really have to focus on return on investment. So clearly this is the one phrase from her policy briefing that's stuck in our head. It's a little bit like you're in high school or college and you haven't read Moby Dick and the teacher or professor asks what it's about. And you say, it's a story of man versus nature. Yeah, but what happens? It's the story of man versus nature. I mean, that's all she got. It's all she has. It's pathetic, but it's typical and shows why they don't really trust her in unscripted settings.
Rich Lowry, John Catsimatidis. I'm back. Now, is she really going to debate Donald Trump? I mean, she's not capable.
Yeah, I know.
And so what excuse can they come up?
Sid shared with me a morning or two ago your theory that she's not going to show up. I think she has to, John. I think it's just be too embarrassing.
She doesn't know any answers.
Well, that's true, but I think they got the note cards and she's memorizing them as we speak.
Something is going to happen. Write it down. Something is going to happen because they cannot make her look that bad on the debate. They rather make her look bad that she couldn't go because she's sick, because she has COVID, because China is attacking.
Yeah, she'll blame it on something.
Somebody's going to be blamed.
Yeah.
But she doesn't have the ability to go against President Trump.
Well, if she does show up, this will be obviously one of the main opportunities, or really only significant opportunity to expose her. So Trump's going to need to make every use of every minute of that 90-minute debate, or however long it is.
Yeah, Rudy Washington.
Hey, Rich, look, a month ago, I don't think there was a network anywhere saying that she could put two sentences together.
Yeah.
And now, all of a sudden, she's
the second coming.
She's Margaret Thatcher.
Right, right. William Shakespeare.
Who could control the media like that? that they can turn on a dime? Who could do that? Who could tell them, sing off this sheet of music?
They operate as a herd, and you're right. It happened within 48 hours, maybe less. I mean, it was nearly instantaneously, the transformation from a subpar vice president to the second coming of Barack Obama. And they want to maintain this illusion. She's a puppet. She's a cardboard cutout of a candidate. She can read a teleprompter competently. And as far as I can tell, that's their only political skill. And they want to get by with that for the next 75 days.
Rich, about the media, too, to Rudy's point, I saw this. This is ABC, CBS, and NBC. Get this. Harris coverage, 84% positive. Trump coverage, 89% negative.
Yeah, that's
you
about
can't
right.
make it up.
What a
Maybe
shot.
a little low.
You can't make it up.
Maybe a little lower than I expected for Trump on the negative coverage. Yeah, but look, he has to punch through that, and that's a big task. Republicans have always had to work above and around the media, but it's worse than ever with Trump. But the guy has a big megaphone and knows how to deliver a message.
Yeah, that is for sure. Now, by the way, so what do you think that this final task moment is going to happen? Because to John's point, maybe something is going to happen where she won't debate. I don't know if she's ever going to get ready. And then she keeps delaying even an interview. She's not even doing an interview with all of the friendly media out there.
That's not true. She did an interview with Waltz.
Oh, yeah, that's right. When they talked about food.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right. Tacos.
I'm surprised because I thought, one, it'd be very hard not to do one when you choose Waltz. Two, that it'd be a natural, go to the MSNBC booth sometime this week with Waltz, and talk to Rachel Maddow, right? And say, look, we just did an interview, although Rachel Maddow would be crying tears of joy throughout the whole interview. But she said she'll do one by the end of August, but the days are ticking away. And it may be that they never do one, if they put up with the criticism on this score this long. So maybe they'll try to just gut it out.
So this is the new basement strategy.
Yeah, you're right. Biden part 2, right?
Yeah, but with the basement, it's sort of misremembered a little bit. He did plenty of Zoom interviews. The thing is, he didn't go out and try to build events because he couldn't build a crowd, and that would be embarrassing. But he did interviews, so this is it's a different version of the basement strategy where she's out there and actually she is building crowds, but they don't trust her to speak in public spontaneously. Where they dumped the guy they didn't trust to talk in public spontaneously for another candidate they don't trust to speak in public spontaneously.
Absolutely, Rich Lowry. Thank you. Great
Thank
column.
you, Rich.
Always great having you.
We got at least a $1 bet.
There you go.
Isn't that the standard bet between Duke and Duke in that movie?
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true. What do you think?
$1 bet.
Yeah.
I don't think she's
Let's
going
do
to
it.
show.
Let's do it.
All right,
All right.
$1. You got it. We have witnesses. Thanks,
Buy a
Rich.
cup of coffee anymore for $1.
Yeah, you can. You can.
Thank you, Rich.
Thanks, Rich.
Thank you.
And joining us now is Judge Andrew Napolitano. We were just talking about sort of
Let me ask the judge.
Yeah, about $1?
Another $1. Is she going to show up for the debate or not?
Well, it's a pleasure to be on with you guys. I think she has to show up for the debate. I agree. They brought me on about 2/3 of the way into Rich's statements. I agree with everything my friend Rich Lowry was saying. This debating is not her thing. Interviewing is not her thing. Being precise is not her thing. Look, they want to convey the impression that what we saw the past 2 nights and what we will see tonight and tomorrow night is middle America. Who ever heard of it? DNC, where they're chanting USA, USA, USA. They want to radically change the USA, but they don't want to give that impression now. She doesn't want to give that impression by being specific. This is all part of their strategy. I expect the polls to change, but right now it shows that she's still enjoying the afterglow of her out-of-nowhere nomination. And it seems to be working.
Let me ask you, because one of the other things we're hearing, Judge, is they keep using the phrase convicted felon. Like, again, it's sort of like there's no policy. It's like all attack Trump. I got to ask your thoughts about what's happening, because clearly this is like this whole lawfare. They're relishing it.
Well, is Judge Weinberg there? Because if he
right
is,
here, Your Honor.
And he's smiling.
My dear friend, he knows what I'm about to say. The conviction is not valid and not licit until the time of sentencing.
Exactly right.
Now, I don't know if the Republicans want to get precise on this. I suppose in the public's mind,
Makes
he
no
was
difference.
convicted when the jury verdict came down, but he is not a convicted felon, and I don't think he's going to be sentenced until after Election Day.
Now, why do you say that? And you know what's interesting? The reason I asked that, Judge, is we had Andy McCarthy on. We also had John Yoo on.
I got to start keeping track of my $1 bets.
Yeah.
You have to see your banker.
If you had asked me last week what I thought would happen, I would say what I've been saying, and I haven't heard John Yoo, but I've heard Andy, and that is that Justice Meerschaum will sentence him to 6 months in prison, suspend 5 months, and order the 1 month served after Election Day. Now, that, if it happens, will please the Democrats and deny the Republicans this election interference argument. However, when Trump's people asked for an adjournment until after Election Day and the government did not oppose it, I think that Justice Meerschaum may very well move this until after Election Day. Now, they can't put him in jail if he's the president-elect. He has a constitutional duty to begin assembling an administration. Be very, very hard-pressed to incarcerate him in that environment. If he loses, of course, then all bets are off in terms of what they can do to him.
If he loses, the free world loses.
Well, I agree with you on that, John. There's a lot more that we will lose if Trump is not elected. However, if we're just talking about the incarceration or non-incarceration, there would be no reason to suspend the sentence if he loses the election. If he wins the election and the judge is looking for some street cred with the Democratic clubhouse that made him a judge, he will impose a sentence of incarceration but suspend it.
And Judge,
I am stunned that the government, maybe Judge Weinberg has an idea, I am stunned that the government did not oppose the motion to move the sentencing till after Election Day and said, Judge, we leave it up to you. And I don't know Justice Meerschaum well enough to know what he'll do in this environment. Perhaps Judge Weinberg knows him.
I know him, but let me say this. The fact of the matter is this is a trial that never should have taken place just on the immunity issue, Judge. They should have had a hearing and a ruling on the issue of immunity, especially it's now telling that the Supreme Court of the United States has spoken on this issue because they used evidence in the trial has to do with presidential acts, clear presidential acts. So this whole thing is tainted, Judge.
What official presidential acts were used in the trial? I thought
they
used
evidence of stuff.
Acts.
No. The record is clear. They used certain evidence, and there was objection by defense counsel. It had to do with acts he did as president.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Judge Napolitano, real quick.
If that's the case, then Meerschaum has the nearly impossible task of predicting what the jury would have done if that evidence had been kept from them.
Exactly
impossible.
Right. Exactly right.
Judge, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Judge. And we'll catch up again soon.
All the best.
Okay.
Thank you.
And right now, Liz Radabali is calling in from Chicago. Liz, you got 1 minute. What the heck is going on?
Well, it is a complete contrast of the message of unity that the Democrats are trying to portray versus the discord that we see outside with protesters. It is night and day. The police chief of Chicago, the superintendent, he actually said that they are not instigators of violence, but they responded to it as far as the police response. They arrested 56 people at the Israel consulate last night. So a big theme is the contrast between the unity that they are trying to portray and the people upset with the party and their stance on the Middle East.
Would you like to say something,
Rudy, Washington?
Those are their shock troops that they've been using for the last 3 years.
Are they paid political advisors?
Yes. Somebody's paying for
them.
Yeah, they all have like same signs, same outfits.
Well, not only that, Rita, who's feeding them?
Well, and also they're burning the American flag. I'll tell you, last night I was here live and they were burning the American flag, burning the Israel flag, insulting.
Let's go to break right now. Thank you, Liz. Let's go to break right now. We're going to come back with Michael Goodwin from Star reporter from the New York Post.
It's a common sense recap of the big stories. It's Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
And we are back here on Cat and Cosby. Rudy, you just talked about basically our liberty, our freedoms under attack.
I was just saying with Judge Napolitano, I wanted to get in and basically say, I'm somewhat in agreement with him because I think they have to gauge. If you try to sentence President Trump on any of these trials, when everybody in the country, every lawyer in the country, if they're being fair-minded, would know none of this stands up. Not even those impeachments. So to talk about even giving him jail time might be a bridge too far.
It is. It's incredible. But, this week, and we talked about Andy McCarthy and we had John Yoo, also both great legal minds. They believe that he will be sentenced, whether it actually goes into fruition. They believe there'll be appeals. Or a delay, just like what Judge Napolitano talked about, till after Election Day. But it is outrageous that we're at this point.
And we're sitting
Rudy.
there. Now,
it's incredible.
Senator Johnson and them just put out a report, as Kat just said, with the hand in the till. And
nothing happened. Right.
No impeachments, nothing.
Because the rest of the report that the House committees issued shows that the Justice Department was in the bag. Garland, the Attorney General of the United States, was in the bag.
And explain why they let it go.
Because they let the statute of limitations go against the most serious charges against Joe Biden himself.
Which was the foreign influence, the FARA, it's called.
Foreign influence.
So, Judge.
The registration and the fact that Joe was aiding and abetting that.
So, Judge, what does that mean for our country and our democracy? They always say Trump is going to destroy democracy.
Right. Yeah, they're the ones using the lawfare. That's what's disgusting.
Because it's what the psychiatrists call projection. What they have done is absolutely destroy the judicial system prosecutorial function. And that's because of Garland and Weiss, and they let them get away with it.
Yeah, and that's what's disgraceful, especially, as we're talking about it. We talked about this at the beginning, sort of the lies. You've got this appearance of we're the unity party. We're the party who welcomes everybody. Yeah. And then the next word out of their mouth is Trump's a convicted felon, they keep saying every night. You even heard Governor Patterson say every single speaker. And wait till tonight, because we have Tim Walz tonight, who, boy, has a lot of questions in his own background. In fact, Judge Weinberg, is he going to talk about his friendship with that crazy imam, that crazy cleric?
Or how he himself was in bed with the Chinese?
30
trips.
Yeah, that's right, 30 trips.
And of all times to have a honeymoon, he does on the anniversary of the slaying of 10,000 students in China.
Yeah, Tiananmen Square.
How horrible is that? And I have real confidence he'll bring law and order to this country since he allowed the rioting in Minneapolis with $500 million worth of damage. People died and people were hurt.
Yeah, that was disgraceful. He didn't call the National Guard. He allowed it to burn. And you know what I thought was gross, you guys, too? Even in addition to that, when he said, what do you think when the mayor, the Democratic mayor was pleading, saying, please send the National Guard. Minneapolis is burning. You're the governor of Minnesota. And he said, well, what do you think? They're going to be well qualified? They're going to be 19-year-old cooks. And he's a member of the National Guard.
And he also had some statement to the equivalent of what Biden said, is that they had a point. He understood what they were protesting.
Yeah, when
they were burning down Minneapolis, he understood their point. And his wife was celebrating. She kept the windows open to smell the rubber burning because she wanted to remember it because it was so important historical act.
By the way, let's not forget about Kamala Harris, the top of the ticket, because remember, she donated to the bail fund that was bailing out those rioters, and a number of them reoffended with very serious charges.
Violent crimes and attempted murders and armed robberies and rapes, yeah. That's the money that she contributed.
Well, that's what's going to be interesting tonight, because I watch, just like John, I like to watch the speeches and see what they say. Let's see what they say tonight. Let's see what Tim Walz says tonight. Is he going to pretend like he's Mr. Law and Order tonight, Mr. Kumbaya tonight? What kind of Tim Walz do you think we're going to get?
You're going to get Robert Young in Father Knows Best.
That's right.
That's what you're going to get. It's all, it's an orchestrated. It's a very, very orchestrated convention.
Yeah, is it ever, John.
Well,
it is.
Well, you guys are better than me. You can't pour water on me and tell me it's raining, and that's what they're doing. I almost regurgitate watching it. I just got to turn it off.
By the way, there are reports that it's Steven Spielberg who's sort of helping, and it looks like a movie.
The other thing I noticed, Rudy,
it
does. I have a zero prejudice rate, but in the Democratic convention, it was like was it 60 or 65% black?
Well, Kat, at one point, I'm going to ask you for a 5-minute segment of my own to speak to this whole tribal thing that's been set up here in America. And it offends me when they're condescending to African Americans that we should vote on skin color. Not on quality, but on skin color. It goes against everything that Dr. King ever talked about.
Yes. I mean, you the first thing as an American citizen, the first thing as an American, you have to pick the most qualified people.
Be colorblind. Be
colorblind.
Yeah,
I agree 110%.
Yeah, but their whole culture is diversity, equity, and inclusion. It all is based on identity politics. And it's not about merit or intelligence or experience.
And to your point, you guys, this was one of the things. Michelle Obama last night, I thought she was so polarizing when she came out. And I'm curious, Rudy, your thoughts on this. She said Donald Trump tried to make people fear us, two people who are successful and black. One of us, we have black jobs. I mean, what does that say to you when you're hearing this? Is the former First Lady of the United States, one of the most important voices, clearly. Well, that's so divisive,
I know,
disgusting.
What aspect of that statement you want me to respond to? Yes, because all you got to do now is ride around the city and look at who's working construction. It's not African Americans. Who's driving trucks? It's not African Americans. The jail population, it's African Americans. The drug population, it's African Americans. I mean, Trump is right. You know, we're the ones, black males are the ones circling the drain. If anybody have ever looked at the charter of BLM, you would see they're anti-man, they're anti-God, they're anti-family. Those goes
the
against
Democratic
all
Party seems
anti-American.
The Democratic Party seems like they're anti-God and they're anti-church.
Exactly. It's the foundation that made America great. Faith, family, that's what we
respecting
were.
each other.
It was a different Democratic Party since I was working in the Democratic Party.
Absolutely.
No, I was, I used to love Bill Clinton and Democratic Party then.
Yeah, this is a very different. John, I agree. This is a very different party than Bill Clinton.
I'm going to be very interested in listening to how Bill Clinton handles it tonight.
Yeah, me too. It'll be great to hear. Look, a great speaker. It'll be interesting to see him. And Tim Walz. We'll see what he says.
What do we all stand for? Truth, justice, and the American way. God bless America.